the Detroit Red Wings, not in on John Klingberg anymore. He signed a very unique 1-year, $7 million deal with the Anaheim Ducks, but have been a name that have been linked to Nazem Kadri. And let's just qualify this association right now. There have been firm rumors, if not actual tangible information, about Nazem Kadri linked to the Colorado Avalanche, which isn't a surprise. Team he just played for. He would obviously say that he'd want to go back there. He just want to cup with them for the right price. And they would obviously love to have him back for the right price. So that depends on their cap situation. That's fair. The New York Islanders, I think that makes a lot of sense. Is it easy to get news out of the Lou Lamoriello camp? No, not really. But that one seems fair, and there's kind of a conspiracy theory that that's one of Lou's contracts that he just has in the drawer. So pending some cap moves, maybe that could be announced there. And when you get down the list to the Detroit Red Wings are pretty much only linked because it seems like it could be a fit, and they have the cap space. I'm going to lead this and say I don't think it's happening. If Andrew Copp wasn't signed, maybe. But with where Nazem Kadri is in age and what he'd probably be looking for, unless he went the John Klingberg route, I don't see it happening because I don't see Detroit giving that much term for the amount of money he's going to command. But let's just have the conversation for the sake of it.
I don't think he'll be comparable to John Klingberg because the difference between him and Klingberg was everybody agrees on who and what Nazem Kadri is as a player and what quality of player he is, more or less. Klingberg, the debates are out there. He's like, yeah, he's great offensively, but he's a nightmare defensively. So how valuable actually is he, right? Those debates aren't there with Kadri. I've seen some people throw the argument around of, no, the Red Wings can't be in on Kadri because, you just signed Copp, you signed Suter last year, like you have Veleno on the fourth line, like all your center spots are spoken for. I know I talked about this a few episodes ago, it bears repeating. That's loser mentality. Don't ever think that. If you can upgrade, you upgrade. If we have to bump Andrew Copp to the wing because he's playing with Nazem Kadri, that's okay. That's an upgrade. That's a plus. That's a win. You always upgrade whenever you can upgrade. I've been on record for a few years as saying I'm a big fan of Nazem Kadri. I like his game. I think he's a great player. I'm glad to see he's finally getting the recognition he deserves as to how good he actually is. I don't think he's as good as he was last year. That feels pretty unsustainable, especially outside of Colorado, but he's still like a legit upper tier second line center.
Yeah.
If the Red Wings were interested in him, that would make a ton of sense as long as it's short term.
He's going to be 32 before the season starts.
Exactly. Honestly, if the Red Wings were to sign Nazem Kadri to a 2-year contract, I'd be fully on board, and I almost don't even care what the cap hit is. The Red Wings have infinity cap space right now, like close to 10 mil. I know they still got a couple RFAs to sign. And their cap situation is in a great situation for next year, so they can afford to overpay a player for the next 2 years if they're a legitimately good player. So, but again, the issue with Kadri is he's 32. He's probably going to start declining this year. Frankly, it's a testament to him that he hasn't already.
Yeah. I mean, again, I really like Kadri's game. I think he's underrated, but you're right. Colorado and that team has helped a lot.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. You put anybody on that team and their stats are going to get inflated. But again, still a good player. Even on a bad team, he's probably a 60-point guy. Like he's good. But yeah, like you can't have any faith in the NHL anymore to have guys be super successful past the age of 35 because 98% of the league follows that trend.
Yeah.
You have the freaks of nature every once in a while, like Crosby and Bergeron, who do. They are such severe outliers, and they're even still lesser versions of themselves in the 20s, but because they were such superstars in their 20s, like
a lesser version of Sidney Crosby is still a point per game player.
Yeah. The 75% of 25-year-old Sidney Crosby is still an MVP candidate.
Yeah. When you're a generational talent, that's how it goes.
Yeah. Nazem Kadri isn't that. He's still really, really good, but he isn't that. But he solves a lot of problems for the Red Wings. He's a huge upgrade at, one of their weaker positions. Like, it all makes sense. provided the contract makes sense, which if I'm Nazem Kadri and I'm 32 years old going into the season, this is my last payday. I'm not settling on my contract. We will talk about John Klingberg and all the reasons beyond his control why he had to. But if I'm Kadri, I am maxing this out, whether it's term or like, fine, I'll take a short-term deal, but the AAV you would have to pay me is going to make up for those 3 extra years you're not giving me.
Yeah, he would be asking for something like what Barkov is making in terms of AAV. Like he'd be closer to 10 than not.
Yeah, exactly.
And on a short-term deal, which I also really like Nazem Kadri's game. I think he's as good as he has been boneheaded in the past, which is very for both, but not for that much money. Again, I agree with you. I could stomach a certain amount over value. Doesn't necessarily make sense for the Red Wings. There would be a lot of people saying no. And I think the argument there would be, okay, you have Larkin, Kadri, Copp. That is a pretty sweet top 3 centers, especially considering where the Red Wings have been in the recent past. But that pretty firmly puts them into, all right, well, if you're paying Kadri this much, then you are trying to make the playoffs. And you had better hope that the advantages or the improvements that you made in the defensive core can keep up with the, planned or projected increase in scoring that you just added to your offense. Because then that top 9 starts to look awfully playoffy. If you have Raymond, Larkin, Bertuzzi, Vrana, Copp, Perron, Kadri, Kubalik, Zadina, whichever winger is playing well enough to be on that third line, not to mention Fabry, who's going to be out for a while with his ACL surgery. That is you need to be trying to make the playoffs with those forwards. You're not paying that much to guys who are in their 30s or who will be in their 30s to not make the playoffs. So this all kind of ties into, like, we're having this conversation because Detroit's been mentioned and they've been tied to Kadri, but there's very narrow ways in which this makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, Detroit's got to be careful to not be that team that gets content with what they did this offseason because, they're going to be a fringy playoff team this year, like at best, which is not where you want to live. But you have to be there at some point because you're not going from the basement to cup contenders without going through this step. The Nazem Kadri type of move is like the move you make next summer if the team misses the playoffs by like 5 points this year.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're good. We improved a lot. We're very clearly not a contender yet. Who's the guy that we can bring in to put over the top? Now, you could go for the big swing like a Matthew Tkachuk, or you could find, the veteran who is really, really good, but you could probably get for less term. Obviously I want Kadri on a 2-year term right now. He's not taking that, but someone along those lines.
Someone who can add to the forward group and really push them over.
Yeah. And again, I'm a big advocate of if you can upgrade, you always upgrade. And, if the Red Wings are a fringy playoff team now and they can add Kadri for, a couple years and all of a sudden, like, no, they should be like unseating Boston this season. That's the goal. Sure. Like if you can get further along that path now without sacrificing anything other than a couple years worth of cap space, absolutely you do it. Because if you could skip that, fringy middle stage, perfect. Nobody likes to be there. That'd be awesome. Again, from Kadri's standpoint, I don't see how that makes any sense at all to take a 2-year contract right now, unless you're getting $10 million a year.
Would you be happy to see Kadri in a Red Wings sweater? Me personally, yeah. That is going to be an improvement. But considering the context we just talked about, it makes it seem not disagreeable. There are, like we have just mentioned, there are ways in which this makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure more that we aren't thinking about right now. It's not disagreeable. It's just unlikely. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockeytown Evan.